I'm here to introduce you to a new Amflow, and I assure you, you didn't see this one coming. Fox suspensions with 120mm of travel in the front and 105mm in the rear. 27.5-inch wheels, both front and rear. Your mind is starting to blow, right? Well, you're going to be amazed. Let's keep going and pay attention to this. Abinox electronic shifting. Abinox M2 motor with 125 newtons, 125 num, and a removable 800W battery, telescopic C-post, headlight, and double height handlebar as standard. What kind of bike do you think this is? Well, hold on to your seat,
because you're going to be blown away.
It comes with a basket and saddlebags. How does that make you feel? Let me introduce you to the new Amflo TL, which can be considered a sub-bike. We're not really sure if it stands out for being urban, for bike packing, or maybe for being a mountain bike. But in any case, if you stick around for the video, I'm going to tell you absolutely all the details about this very versatile bike. First, please hit the subscribe button to help me grow the project. It's free and costs nothing. Now let's start the review. Amflo is a young, ambitious brand. In a few months, they surprised us with their first PL and quickly established themselves in the market with the PR and PX. Of course, all of these bikes have always been designed specifically for trail and enduro mountain riding. The concept behind this TL is very different. Here, the goal is maximum versatility in a single platform, urban riding, mountain trails, and even heavy bike packing. As you can see, this new TL keeps the mountain style look of its siblings, the PR and PX. This might make us think that we can really go wild with this bike in the mountains. Well, out of the three areas where it performs, it's really in the mountains where we need to be more specific, because it's true that we can ride on trails with it without any problem. It's true that we can get onto some less technical trails. But as soon as we start looking for something with rocks, roots, or some jumps, we begin to find limitations in the suspension, which isn't high-end, in the kinematics, and in the travel. So, to be honest, I'd say yes, you can take it to the mountains, but don't get too carried away. It's not a bike for enduro riding. It can help you stay in shape, but it's not for enduro. Where it really stands out is in urban environments and for bike packing. Imagine during the week riding around the city with this bike, this powerful motor that lets you take off really fast. With these 27.5-inch wheels, both front and back, which for me are a big advantage because they let you move very nimbly through traffic, and also since both are 27.5-inch and it has a dropper seat post, look, you can reach the pedals, the ground directly, no matter your height, easily. This is always an advantage, whether stopping at lights, starting off, or similar situations. Then, on the other hand, being able to have both this front platform and this rear rack as standard, which lets you carry loaded backpacks, I don't know, the things you have to take to work, groceries, a child's seat, even for your pet. Always keeping in mind that the weight limit is 27 kilos on this rear rack. Well, hey, it lets you do that, carry things, and get around the city without any problem. But of course the weekend comes, and that's when you have the great option of turning it into what would be the equivalent of a Volkswagen California, but in a bicycle version with up to 200 kilos of cargo. Taking into account the weight of the bike, the rider, what it can carry, and a hypothetical trailer you could attach back here, which hooks onto the rear axle. That's amazing, up to 200 kilos of cargo. You might say you have to be careful, since the motor may not have enough power to pull all that weight. Not at all. We're talking about an Abinox, an M2. Continuously will give you 110 Newton meters and 1100 watts. And at peak, let's say, it will give you up to 125 Newton meters and also 1100 watts. So that's it. As for range, we have an 800 watt-hour removable battery, so you could carry several other batteries with you in case we wanted to swap them out if we were doing a very long trip. And on the other hand, we have the option to install a range extender of up to 480 watts, also here in the bottle holder area. So can you imagine the number of kilometers you can cover with it? According to Downflow's calculations, 172 kilometers of range with the 800 watt-hour battery. Of course, keep in mind that the calculation was made based on riding the bike without any load, with an 80 kilogram rider and on completely flat terrain. And doing all of this in eco mode. Let's talk about the Abinox M2 electric system. Those of you who know it are aware that it's super powerful, very quiet, and even in maximum assistance mode, it's almost unnoticeable. But today, I especially want to talk to you about several points that I've noticed very positively regarding the specific setup that this motor has for this bike. To begin with, I'll tell you that when you have the motor completely turned off, because maybe one day you say, hey, I want to pedal on my own, I don't want any assistance. Well, in that case, honestly, the pedaling feels exactly the way you want it to. You feel the same as you would on a regular non-electric bike, also called a pulmonary bike. Obviously, you notice the extra weight from the battery, motor, and so on. But as far as the gearing goes, it doesn't slow you down. It's very smooth and really interesting. On the other hand, there's a point when you reach 25 kilometers per hour where with many brands, their motors suddenly stop providing assistance. At 25 it's zero and suddenly the bike has no assistance and it feels like a sudden braking. With this motor, we're lucky because it doesn't feel like braking. Instead, it turns into a kind of gradual deceleration. It starts at 25.0 and as you go up, 25.5, 25.7, 26, 26.2, the bike gives you less and less assistance. So you lose that really annoying part, especially in the city where you stop and start, and the bike seems to go crazy trying to accelerate and then suddenly brakes hard, right? So this here is very well solved. Next, there's a feature, traction control on the rear wheel. So the bike already senses when it's moving, when you're going to pedal, and it directly engages the rear axle. So you lose a little bit of that time when the wheel spins on its own. And that's something that, in a situation like mountain riding, with very little grip and loose terrain, is really appreciated because it almost completely eliminates the possibility of the rear wheel slipping. And finally, it has a detection system, the angle of the bike's tilt, and when it goes over 45 degrees, what could happen. We might think that we're about to have a fall or an accident. Unless you're Valentino Rossi, the motor automatically stops assisting you. And this way we make sure that, well, the motor won't increase the damage you could suffer from a hypothetical fall. If the motor is the heart of the bike, the nervous system is all the electronics, and we can basically control it through this 2-inch touchscreen that we have here on the frame, where we're going to have absolutely all kinds of information about our routes, of course, distance, duration, altitude. Well, everything you can think of is here. It can be controlled not only by touch, but also through the controls we have on the handlebar. And of course, it's 100% customizable through the Abinox app. There are many unique features. I can mention that it can connect with Apple, so you always know where the bike is. It also has GPS navigation, so you can download a route you have from, I don't know, Strava or Komoot directly to the Amflow app, and a map will appear here, guiding you exactly where you need to go. Then you have other options, like linking your heart rate through a heart rate monitor and so on to the bike, and setting a range in which you want to stay. If you're within range, it will assist you the way you want it to. If you're below, it will recognize you need less help and reduce assistance. And if you're above that heart rate, it will give you even more assistance so you don't get too exhausted. Well, anyway, there are millions of options that I invite you to explore in the app, because the bike is really much more than what you see here. The rest of the bike is in your pocket and fully customizable. One of the most interesting features of this bike is right here in this area, in this electronic shifting system that has been developed jointly by Abinox, the e-bike motor brand, and TRP, the bicycle transmission brand. They've achieved several interesting features. To begin with, everything's operated from the main Abinox control on the handlebar, so we don't need a separate button specifically for the rear shifter. On the other hand, it has features like smooth shift, for example, which allows the motor to intelligently understand the best moment to change gears. And what if it decides, for example, that even if you're not pedaling, it's a good idea to change gears to get you ready for what's coming next. Whether it's at the front or the back, it's going to do it. It will activate the motor and move the whole mechanism to change the cassette sprocket, even if you're not pedaling. Other features, such as protecting the chain, are also related to this. Maybe you're asking the motor to change the sprocket at a moment when there's a lot of tension, a lot of strain on the chain, and the motor says, hey, wait a moment. And when it finds the right moment, when the tension drops, that's when it actually makes the change. Or it goes ahead and makes micro adjustments to prevent the chain from getting out of alignment and ending up with a gear shift that doesn't work properly. So, in short, it's something very interesting, and I'm convinced that in the future, Abinox will keep evolving in this direction until they have a gear system that can really compete 100% with what's currently offered by SRAM and especially Shimano. Let's review the components, starting with the brakes, which I really liked. They're Tektro brakes with dual pistons, both front and rear, 180 millimeters in disc diameter, very powerful, hydraulic, and more than enough to stop the bike even when it's loaded with a lot of weight. I really like them. I think it's a very good choice. On the other hand, of course, we have a dropper seat post and a saddle from the Amflow brand itself, which I find very comfortable. Aluminum rims, both front and rear, in 27.5 as we mentioned before. Maxxis Crossmark tires in 2.35, both front and rear. They are full-on mountain tires, but they're good enough for the city. Keep in mind that both the front platform and the rear rack, as well as the fenders, come standard. But anything else you want to put on top, like, I don't know, for example, I found this net or the bags on the back. The Amflow brand itself doesn't have them for now, so you'll have to look for third-party options. However, the attachments are universal, so you won't have any problems. This might seem absurd, but almost none of the bikes I review come with pedals as standard, and this one does. So I want you to take that into consideration. Because hey, it's not just a simple flat plastic pedal, that's it. It actually comes with its own pins and everything. Just a few, 4 on each side, but it's interesting because it works both for city riding and for a bit of mountain biking. What else can I tell you? The headlight, of course, also comes standard. It lights up a lot at night. And I almost forgot, very important. In this case, it's not electronic, it's not a horn or anything like that, but hey, it sounds good. A few more details, that the weight is 22.6 kilos according to what Amflow itself tells us. But well, once we load it up with all the racks, the basket, the pedals and everything we have to carry, you can imagine that number could easily go up by a kilo, right? Then on the other hand, we're basically going to have two sizes, SSM and LLXL approximately. This one you see here is the small one for 75 millimeters, so you can get an idea of what we're talking about. And what I can't tell you yet is the price, because we're recording this video well before the launch and the price hasn't been confirmed yet. If for any reason while we're editing it before the launch we get that information, we'll leave it here on the screen for you. Let's start with the things I like the most. The one I would highlight the most without a doubt is the versatility, because I think it's real versatility. Setting aside the limitations we've mentioned for mountain riding, this bike meets all the other goals we set for it without any problem. Then there's the matter of the motor's power, which is a plus, and everything related to the electronics. With the configuration in the app, with all the external connections you can make, even with DJI action cameras that you can connect. I mean, it's incredible the level of customization you can achieve with this bike when it comes to the electronics. Then, on the other hand, the components it comes with, I think they're robust. They serve their purpose. Brakes are a point where many bikes of this style usually fall short, sometimes even using mechanical disc brakes instead of hydraulic ones. And here we have good brakes. The gear shift is electronic, it makes smart decisions. The suspensions might not be top of the line, but they do what they're supposed to. As for the arms, the racks, I'm not sure. It's a sturdy bike, a bike that once again will deliver whatever we ask of it. It's fun to ride, it basically has no learning curve, And I don't know, overall, it's a bike that I've really enjoyed throughout my testing. Things that could be improved, for example, the position of the front basket. Okay, I want you to notice here, if we carry a bulky load up high, we're quickly going to run into a limitation with this headlight we have here. Or even when turning the handlebars, the headlight could hit the load. So it would be very interesting if the basket were located a little lower, or even if the headlight could hang below the basket. I suppose that in future versions, this is something they will probably improve. Then having a mountain bike style frame gives it that visual appeal. But for some of us, not everyone, it creates a small problem when getting on the bike. Because it either forces us to make this movement or it forces us to make this movement. While there are many other bikes, especially city bikes, that have a low bar here, and we can get on by just lifting our knee a little bit. Anyway, this is something to keep in mind because I don't know, people who have a leg injury, older people, I don't know, that's something you have to consider yourselves. Finally, the position of the LED screen. I think the LED screen works incredibly well, okay? It's touch sensitive, provides all the data, is bright in light with no contrast issues, but its position is very low. And for a user who isn't a cyclist, 100%, who isn't used to handling a bike, especially in the city where you have to pay close attention to traffic, being able to have the cycle computer type screen here on the handlebar saves you a few centimeters of lost attention to the road. Looking here and quickly glancing up isn't the same as looking down here. It may seem like a small thing, but in moments when you're in the middle of traffic and so on, it can make a difference, especially when you're following GPS guidance or something like that. It's nothing too serious, but it would be really interesting to have a hypothetical display on the handlebar in the future, higher up and so on. Who is this Amflow TL Carbon aimed at? Well, you've seen it a bit throughout the video. It's actually super versatile. It's really for someone who wants to make a smart purchase, a single bike that can be used for as many things as possible, as long as you don't require it to go to the mountains to do enduro. It's light enough to handle in an elevator, I don't know, in a storage room, to load it into a car, something like that. It's not the typical tank-like bike that weighs 30 or 35 kilos. With those 22 or 23, you can really feel the difference in weight. And on the other hand, it really delivers. It does everything you ask of it. So let me know in the comments what rating you would give it from 1 to 10, and I'll see you in future videos. Be happy.
Bye.